it's supposed to be spring, doesn't really feel like it. Shouldn't be dressed like this. Mind you, it's only beginning of March really. Before I go on, I've got to say something. This video is a sponsored video, I'm afraid, and thank you very much. It's sponsored by Tormek. I'm not going to wear this cap. My wife says I look like Super Mario in it, so there you go. There's a promotion. Thank you, Tormek. Loads more than just a review going on in this video because I want to keep it bushcrafty. But yeah, let's get on with it and let's get rid of that hat. Good. Might give that hat as a giveaway to some unlucky soul. Just been preparing a bit of wood and getting this little contained fire going. Been using my axe that I made at Graham Clark's forge down near Swindon, and it's a little beauty as well in my eyes. I made it from start to finish under obviously some great tuition.
No, I'm not capsized. I don't want it up to the f***ing sky. Sorry. I'm trying to take off here. I'm concentrating.
It's single-handed axe, so I made a little bit of a palm swell here for the kind of heavier work, and then another palm swell closer to the head there, so that I can maybe just do some little whittling, and it's pretty sharp, and I'm very proud of it because I've never done any forging before. I've made plenty of knives, but never done any forging, so that was fantastic. Right. While that fire's getting going and I'm desperate for a cup of tea, I'll just introduce the video. If you asked 10 people that own knives how they sharpen them, you'd probably get 10 different answers. And I'm one of those people, I can't kind of decide what's the best way, what isn't, but there are certain sharpeners that definitely suit groups of different types of knives. And I bought what I thought was the ultimate knife sharpener, and that was one from the TS Prof range. It wasn't cheap. I managed to get it second hand though for a really good deal, and it's absolutely brilliant. You know, you can get a perfect, what you call a micro bevel on many different, someone at the doorbell, many different types of knife, but it does have a limitation. And that limitation is when you get towards the bushcraft style of knife, which is something like this. Yes, bushcraft knives come in many shapes and forms, but generally you're looking at what's called a Scandi grind, and you see that. That's about a 12-degree either side grind, and it's perfect because it's really strong. You can batten down wood with this, you can prepare food with it, but you can also do some really intricate work. You've seen Ben Orford make a spoon from start to finish, apart from the bowl of the spoon, but he uses one of his woodlander, I think they're called, to do the whole process. And so I think if you're gonna have one knife to do this kind of stuff, the outdoor stuff, the bushcraft kind of style things, then yes, this is what you need, the Scandi grind. And I made this knife, I've shown it a few times. It's one that I like using because I just kept it at a sort of a rough sanding, and I'm not afraid to use it or get it damaged. It's got these sort of luminous linings in there, and I love it, but it's not very sharp. The limitation of the TS Prof is that it can't get down to the angle where the stone makes a nice sweep across the whole of a Scandi grind, and you'll see from the cutaway there that once you get to the angle that you're trying to get to, the sharpening stones actually will impinge on the blade clamp. So I was wondering what on earth we'd do to get a proper edge on my Scandi grinds. I've tried whetstones, I've got all the whetstones, I just can't do it. There's something about it that I can't get quite right. I can't get to that lovely finish on the blade, no matter how many times I try. And this was the first knife I ever made. Look at that horrible handle, but it sits in the hand nicely. It's got a stainless steel Mora blade, and again, a Scandi grind. Look, I put those little liners in it. That's a bog oak handle, and I love using it, but it's lost a lot of its sharpness as well. So here I get to the point. Tormek have come to the rescue and let me have a go with what's called the Tormek T4 Bushcraft. And I'm going to turn my phone off because that's the doorbell keeps going. But let's take a look at it. However, first I do need a cup of tea. Got a couple of tent pegs in some holes that I made in this little fire pit, and they're perfect. You can angle them so they'll take either a big pot or just a small billy like this. That's the noise that we want to hear. Sound of freedom. God, I do feel better. You know, it's been a hell of a few weeks. Won't get into it, but just the crackle of that fire has made me come back to life. Right, let's have a look inside the box. So exciting. Beauty of Tormek is it's one of these companies which is buy once, cry once. There are cheaper alternatives. I had the Shepper equivalent of this because I wanted to try and save a bit of money, and I regretted it instantaneously. You can just feel kind of, you know, cost cutting in many directions. With this, you just immediately get this feeling that it's oozing with quality. You get a great big handbook of how to sharpen various blades, angles that you need and so on. Look at that proper spiral bound handbook there. Get a marker pen, which is really important, and I'll come back to that later. With it you get this axe jig, which is the AX40, the latest one they do. And what about that for a warranty? You don't see that unless a company is pretty proud of their product and have a lot of trust in it. 8-year warranty. Loads of other bump firelighting equipment and so on, till we get to the meat of the product. That's a hanging bracket that you get. You get a stone grader, and what that is because you've just got one whetstone on here, you can use two sides of this, one to make this whetstone coarse and the other side of it to fine it off, so that if you've got a really damaged knife, you can coarsen off this whetstone, and then as you improve the blade, you can use this grader to basically increase the grit on this whetstone. Great feature. Very importantly, you get the KJ45 centering knife jig, which will help you keep that Scandi grind at exactly the right angle. This is a gauge where you can work out your exact bevel angle. You put in the size of the whetstone, you put the angle that you want, and then you just lay this against the whetstone. There's lots of videos of how to do this. However, I alluded to this marker pen, and I'll show you what I think is the most effective and quickest way of getting the correct angle on your blade. Let's get this beauty out. Get the whetstone, there you go, and the SG200. God. Some honing, this isn't honing paste actually, this is some oil that you basically feed the leather wheel, the stropping wheel, and I'll come up with that in a minute because I'm just going to get the machine out. Tormek honing paste, the best in the business as far as I'm concerned. And let's get her out. And there she is, little beauty. I already know that this goes in here. Let's have a tidy up and a proper look. Nothing, not even Tormek, can stand in the way of a man and his cup of tea. I love this cup. It's this little Soto kit, and stirring tea with a stick, and this is a double-walled cup. There you go. So that tea, even though I'm spilling it, will stay hot for absolutely ages, especially as it's got a lid. Have no fear. Bit of AC. Let's have a go. Haven't filled up the bath yet with the water, so but we'll just check it's working. You know, my Shepper, when you started it up, it had this awful to it, and this is already just, I know I'm bigging them up, but I've always just thought Tormek gear is fantastic. Let's fill up the water bath, and it's going to take quite a bit of water. This stone's actually going to absorb quite a lot of water before it's still got a constant flow around it. So here I go, I've got the water bath in place, and I'm just gently feeding the whetstone. It's now got a constant flow of water across it. You can see like that if I do that with my thumb, which is what you need for the cooling aid as you're sharpening the blade. And we'll get set up. I told you there was going to be a simple way of showing you how to get the bevel angle correctly. This is the knife jig, which I'm going to shortly lock the blade in, and this holds the blade at a constant angle using this crossbar here. So I'm going to lock the blade in here, and then I'm going to assess what I think is the right angle, and I'm going to mark the bevel here with a marker pen. And once I've done that, we can do some manual rotations away from ourselves, and we'll see how the blade actually gets rid of the marker that I'm going to put on the bevel. So let's lock this in place. Very simple, I think. It even shows you first screw, second screw, so I'll undo them both first of all. And there we are. So do the back one up first, then one up the front, which actually doesn't need that much doing. So the general concept is that we'll be moving the blade across the whetstone like this and keeping a constant angle, helped by this knife jig here. And I can already tell I'm way too high on this bar, so I'm going to lower it. And this very easy adjustment screw here helps me sort of micro adjust it, and then when I've got it right, I can lock it with these two rear wheels here. So I think I've got it approximately. And now what I'm going to do is mark the bevel. You don't need to do the whole thing, just a good sort of area. And I'm looking at rotating this wheel back on myself, which isn't forwards, which isn't the direction it goes automatically, but I just want to see how that wheel, still nicely in the water, how that wheel is taking the paint, the marker pen off the bevels. So let's just do a few rotations like this, maybe a little bit lower still. There, just how I want it now. Slight hollow grind in here, which is why it's not taking it right out the middle, but that's fine. I'm going to turn it into a nice flat grind. I've got it coarse, the stone's coarse at the moment, so I'm just going to use that. So I've got equal wearing on the bevel from top to bottom. So, time to get started, the fun bit. And there we go, nice flow of water. And I'm just going to start at the heel of the thing, and there we go. And as you get towards the tip, you just gently lift it, but you always keep this running along at the the same angle. You make sure you don't twist this too much on the top here. So it's just simply from there, across, and a slight lift as you get towards the tip. That's really nice. I'm just going to bring my angle up a little bit. As I say, this is trial and error here. And eventually we'll get it exactly right. I'm just going to keep going in one direction. Look at that. That's so much more progress than I ever made in 3 times the time with a whetstone. Well, you know, with a stationary whetstone. This is fantastic and it's good fun. Look at that. Beautiful. You know, I've never used this before, this system, and it's just simplicity in itself. And what I'm looking to get is, I can already feel a burr. Still got to do some tip work, but I can feel a burr from the, yep, bit of tip work and a little bit in the heel there, and we'll be ready to start the other side. And it's important that you don't move on to the other side of the blade until you've got a burr running right across one side. Folks, just look how beautiful that bevel is. That's stunning. And I've got a burr running all the way down the blade now, which means just simply turn round and start the other side, and you don't need to unclamp it or anything like that. You just, always like that, rotate and just work in the opposite direction. So let's get rid of that burr and produce a burr on this side, and then we'll be ready to have a go at using the strop. I would get it to a sort of finer grit using that honing stone, but I just really want to demonstrate the simplicity of using it. This was a very dull knife, so we'll see just with out of the box what sort of sharpness we can get with how the stone came without doing any sort of surface conditioning, and then onto the leather strop here. So I'll get a bevel nicely cleaned up on this side and join you when it's time to start stropping. I was just going to come back to you, as I said, when I was going to do the stropping, but I just need to emphasise the simplicity of using this. You can feel the blade. I mean, just towards the tip there, you do a little bit of a lift, but you can just feel that it's flat against the stone there. And this lovely constant flow of water just shows you getting the angle right. And it could not be easier. It really couldn't. Look, I can't get over it. Look at that. Tea break. You know, I was really nervous to think I could come out here and unbox this and use it for the first time without a practice. But it really has been that easy. So we're now going to move on to the stropping wheel, and I'll just bring the camera down, show you what I'm going to do here. Basically, I'll stop it. You can actually see it's just a ragged bit of leather at the moment, and we need to smooth that off. And the way we do that is, first of all, using about half this tube of its leather honing wheel oil. It gives you the instructions. So you've got to impregnate the leather of the honing wheel with this oil. Use approximately 2/3 of this tube. So I'm going to do that, and then once that's sort of smoothed off, I'm going to load it up with a bit of this Tormek honing paste, which I've used for years, and this is, well, there's no competitors for it. I'm getting stripes there, and what I want to do is just get a nice sort of constant band of oil on the thing, so there's no kind of dry spots. A bit like that. So that's impregnated, and then just use a bit of this honing paste. You're not going to do anything bad to your fingers with a stropping wheel, so basically you load it up with a bit of the paste like that. Try not to have any high spots. And you don't need much of the honing paste, about like that. Now, stropping. Do not use it like I was using this wheel. You're going to cut the strop straight away, especially if this knife's going to be sharp. So you need to strop with the effectively the stropping wheel coming away and down the cutting edge. So I'm going to use it like this, like that. And all you're doing is taking off the burr that you created. Just like that. Oh my word. And that is all you need to do. So here's some paper straight off the printer. One Tormek. Make sure I pick up my litter with me. Let's do another corner. Thank you very much. That's all you need. And you know, that's a very, very clean cut. And all you need with a bushcraft knife, you're not looking at doing intricate carvings. You know, yeah, you can carve a spoon, but you're not going to be carving lovely little patterns into it with a bushcraft knife. You can be cooking, you can be battening down wood, and using a bushcraft knife really what it's built for. You don't have to buy loads of extras with this. You get the axe jig, you get the knife jig, you get your honing paste, you get everything you need to keep your bushcraft knives and other knives. You know, it's got the bushcraft label, but it will do your kitchen knives, of course. But this is everything in one. Absolutely superb. And that knife is as sharp as I ever want it. I think it's time for some lunch. Okay, folks, let's take a looky. Couple of flatbreads, some salami, bit of oil, tomato puree, spinach, mozzarella, and a very sharp knife. Look at that, even cuts through polythene. If you're going to have a heart attack, might as well have a good one. Might as well do it out in the bush. One flatbread. Bosh. That's not blood, that's tomato puree. Hang on, better check. Look at that, looks like an accident. No, it's definitely tomato puree. Mind you, I've done lots of things where I thought I've been working with tomato and then realised I've cut myself, but that'll work. Yeah, this Ridge Monkey, it's a fantastic little device. You obviously use it on an open fire, and this case helps it to keep, you know, keep all the soot off your other things. You get a little kind of set of spoons and whatever, and the beauty of it is it comes apart like that, so you can use it as just a frying pan, but you've got these here handles come together, and then they have got a magnet in there, so it all seals it, and so you can put your whatever you're cooking in it and then just flip it over. If you're doing a toasty or something, do the other side. I'm not sure whether my pizza's going to fit in. When I say it's a pizza, it's sort of the calzone style. Bit of oil in there. rid of the excess, spread around. Let's hope she goes in. Oh yes, made for it. On with the magnets. And on she goes. And a starter for me. Absolutely love mozzarella. I think it's going to need about 5 minutes aside, so in that time I'll just give my camp a little bit of a clear up. Right, that's had 5 minutes aside. Let's see how we're looking. Making all the right noises, that looks right to me. One attempt at a calzone pizza. That's how easy how we're looking. Ow! I think it's going to be all right. Will that work? Certainly does for me. Oh, it's hot. Cheese is oozing out the bottom. Right. Now that was simple. Oh, and hot. So to conclude, folks, before I finish off my pizza, that was a Tormek T4 Bushcraft. All the links in the description below. If I was to really just round it off with what I thought is, it oozed quality. As I said earlier, I bought what they call the equivalent, the Shepherd, the cheap one, and I couldn't get an edge on my knife. And you just saw there, it was out the box, and I got a razor sharp edge on this Bushcraft knife, just with it straight out the box, no honing of the whetstone. So, thank you very much, Tormek, for sponsoring the video. Thank you to you for watching. Please buy the Tormek T4. It would make them giving it to me worthwhile. And I'm going to get on with my pizza. I'm going to leave quite a lot of my gear here because I've actually been allowed out for a camp tonight. So I'm going to return to this spot with a lot more gear for a camping evening, which I'm looking forward to. But in the meantime, as they say in Tormek, stay sharp, and I look forward to seeing you again.